The ink hadn't even dried on the $22 million contract I brought in when my boss called me into his glass office with that fake-ass, friendly tone. I thought it was going to be a congratulations. Instead, I left without a job, a title, or a shred of respect. And that was his first mistake. Before we dive in, where are you listening from? And what time is it for you right now? Drop a comment below. I read everyone. I arrived early today. Also, if you're into stories about career betrayals, personal wins, and quiet revenge, hit that subscribe button. You won't regret it. My name is Lucas Brennan. I'm 33, relentless when it counts, and I made my name turning impossible prospects into loyal clients, until the day my success became my downfall. 2 weeks ago, I landed the biggest whale of my career. BioLife, a biotech unicorn that had been courted by every major firm in the state. They weren't even on our radar when I reached out cold. I knew their CTO from a startup I consulted for back in 2018. A simple, "Hey, you guys happy with your vendor?" turned into 5 weeks of daily pitches, late-night calls, and a full-day demo on my damn birthday. When they signed, and not just for a pilot, but a 3-year retainer worth $22.4 million, I felt like I could breathe for the first time in months. Our firm had been struggling, bleeding talent and losing clients to newer, hungrier shops. I wasn't just closing a deal. I was saving jobs. I was keeping the lights on. So when Marcus, our VP of sales and, not coincidentally, the CEO's golf buddy, called me into his office that Monday morning, I assumed he wanted to debrief, maybe even offer me the promotion he'd been hinting at in hushed hallway chats. I walked in grinning, fresh off a congratulatory call with BioLife's CEO. Marcus didn't even look up from his screen. "Shut the door!" Weird tone. But okay. He finally turned, folded his hands, and gave me this clipped smile I'd seen him use when dismissing interns. "Lucas," he said, "we're going in a different direction." I blinked. "Regarding?" "Your role. Your position is being dissolved effective immediately." I let that hang in the air. "Wait, what are you talking about? I just landed BioLife." He gave this little shrug, like I'd spilled coffee, not secured the firm's future. "We appreciate your efforts, but the decision's been made." No warning, no write-ups, no explanation, just good luck. I stared at him, waiting for the punchline. Then I noticed the exit packet already on the desk. He wasn't kidding. Something cold twisted in my gut. "Is this about the bonus clause?" Marcus blinked. Of course it was. I'd negotiated a 7% commission on new business above $10 million. Do the math. "You'd rather fire me than pay me my cut." "Legal signed off," he said too quickly. "You'll get a severance. That's generous under the circumstances." Circumstances? I felt the heat rise behind my ears. I stood, but I didn't grab the packet. I looked him in the eyes and said, "You just made a massive mistake." He tilted his head. "Are you threatening me?" I smiled. "No, Marcus, I'm promising you." I walked out of Marcus's office with my spine straight and my jaw tight, passing desks full of people who didn't dare look up. News spreads fast in sales, especially when someone like me, the top closer, gets axed like a seasonal intern. I didn't say a word. Not yet. But I could feel the stares, the curiosity, the fear. The thing about being underestimated your whole career is you learn how to keep receipts. Every call, every email, every side comment that didn't sit right. I had them all. More importantly, I had leverage. The bonus clause Marcus thought he could squirm around? That wasn't a handshake deal. It was signed, dated, and tucked into my contract as an addendum after my last record-breaking quarter. I'd even had our old HR director, who left after getting fed up with Marcus's crap, help me write the language. Ironclad. But it got better. What Marcus didn't know was that BioLife's CEO, Kira Miles, had copied me on an email to our CEO, praising my leadership and confirming that without me, the deal wouldn't have happened. She literally wrote, "Lucas Brennan earned this. If you're the kind of company that rewards that, we'll enjoy working with you." That was 2 days before the firing. Guess who never responded? Yeah. Our CEO. Garrett, too busy for details. Simmons. Marcus clearly thought he could play cleanup before Garrett even realized what happened. Fire me fast, get me out the door, rewrote the commission to one of his cronies, and hope BioLife wouldn't care who showed up next quarter. Only problem? Kira did care. A lot. I didn't text her right away. I wanted to be smart about it. So instead, I drove home in silence, sat at my kitchen table, and stared at that exit packet like it was a riddle I was born to solve. 3 months of severance, a tightly worded NDA, and a clause saying I agreed to release all future claims in exchange for payment. I laughed. Nice try, Marcus. I didn't sign it. Instead, I forwarded that email from Kira to myself, archived all communications about BioLife into a private folder, and backed up every version of my contract, including the addendum, to a secure cloud. Then I did something even riskier. I booked a ticket to Boston, where BioLife's headquarters are, and I sent Kira a simple, clean message. Would love to meet in person if you're free this week. I have something you should probably know. She replied 5 minutes later. Come by Thursday morning. Bring coffee. And bring everything. The moment I read that, my phone buzzed again. Blocked number. I picked up. A voice I hadn't heard in years said, Lucas, it's Devin. Heard what happened. You might want to sit down. Marcus just pulled something dirty on more than just you. Devin, I asked, gripping my phone tighter. Wait, Devin Cho? He laughed bitterly. Yeah, man. The ghost of employees passed. Devin had been a quiet force on the operations side until he vanished a year ago. No goodbye, no farewell lunch, just gone. Rumors swirled. Some said burnout, others said Marcus pushed him out after Devin flagged inconsistencies in commissions and client billing. What do you mean Marcus pulled something dirty? I asked, my voice suddenly sharp. Devin didn't hesitate. He's been rerouting client commissions under internal project codes. Sales wins get credited to shell teams he manages directly. I caught it happening on my accounts. Millions just disappearing on paper. I sat back hard, the kitchen chair creaking under me. You tried to report it? 3 times. Garrett buried it every time. Then Marcus made my life hell. My inbox vanished overnight. Security badge deactivated. Classic soft purge. I exhaled through my nose, steadying the anger now boiling in my chest. You have proof? Yeah, Devin said. I've got backups of the billing logs, internal routing sheets, and archived Slack threads where Marcus literally jokes about ghost crediting deals. It's a goddamn goldmine of fraud. Why are you telling me this now? Because BioLife was my client once. I built the pipeline you walked in and closed. You weren't stealing anything. You were finishing what I started. And if they're screwing you too, then maybe it's time someone turned on the lights. I rubbed my eyes. Jesus, you think this goes all the way up? He paused. Let me put it this way. When Marcus's wife suddenly got promoted to CFO at that holding company we partnered with last year, that wasn't coincidence. Of course. I remembered that deal, a vague, barely defined strategic alliance that got shoved through while we were all buried in Q4 chaos. Nobody knew what it really meant. Except now I had a sinking feeling it meant Marcus was laundering performance. Devin sent me a zip file titled Breadcrumbs, said to open it only when I was ready. I thanked him, heart pounding. That night, I didn't sleep. I packed my bags for Boston and spent hours scrolling through the files. The fraud was so blatant I actually laughed. Real ugly laughter, because it was finally all right there. Thursday came fast. I walked into BioLife HQ with 2 coffees, a clean navy blazer, and a folder that could blow my old company sky high. Kira met me in the lobby. She didn't waste time. "So, you got screwed," she said, shaking my hand. "I figured something was off when the new rep they assigned couldn't even explain our API." I grinned. That's just the start. We sat down in a glass conference room. I laid everything out: the fake severance, the deleted emails, the shady commissions, Devon's files. Kira listened, stone-faced. Then she stood, walked to the door, and locked it. "I hope you're open to a proposition," she said. I blinked. "What kind?" She leaned in. "How would you feel about taking everything you know and helping me burn them from the inside out?" The moment Kira locked the conference room door, everything shifted. This wasn't just a courtesy meeting anymore. It was war preparation. She slid a tablet across the table and tapped the screen. "Here's what I've got. BioLife's legal team is already sniffing around. The replacement rep your firm sent? He showed up late, called us BioLife, and tried to pitch a completely different product suite. We're not just annoyed. We're insulted." I tried not to smile. "Sounds about right." "Marcus thought we'd be too distracted to notice," she said, "but I've built this company on accountability, and I don't partner with snakes." She opened a notepad. "So here's what I want. You consult directly with us, as an independent. Short-term contract, full visibility into the onboarding process, plus strategic advisement on whether we escalate this to litigation." My eyebrows rose. "You want me to help you sue my old company?" "No," she said, smiling. "I want you to bury them. Suing is the last resort." "And what do you want in return?" I asked cautiously. Kira leaned back, crossing her arms. "I want you to rebuild our entire vendor operations plan. And I want you to do it like you're building something they can never touch again. We'll pay you what your firm wouldn't, and if this works, we make it permanent." My throat went dry. I wasn't just getting a second chance. I was being handed a blueprint for revenge, dressed as redemption. I signed the consulting agreement before I left that building. But before I did, I said, "One condition." Kira raised an eyebrow. "When this goes public, and it will, I don't want to be anonymous." She grinned. "Deal." The next 2 weeks moved fast. I worked remotely out of a co-working space in Boston, phone on silent, pouring 14-hour days into untangling the mess my old company left behind. BioLife's systems were solid, but their integration map had been a patchwork of half-finished installs and overpromised capabilities. Textbook Marcus. Meanwhile, Kira's legal team quietly began reaching out to others who had left our firm under suspicious circumstances. Turns out Devon wasn't alone. 3 others came forward. One of them had signed a severance NDA under duress. Another had screen recordings of altered commission sheets. We weren't building a case, we were building a reckoning. Then, on a quiet Tuesday morning, I got an email from someone unexpected. Garrett Simmons. Subject: "Urgent, let's talk." No greeting, no apology, just, "We're hearing rumors about your involvement with BioLife. If you've violated your severance agreement, there will be consequences. I suggest you respond quickly." I laughed out loud. Because that's when I knew. They still thought I'd signed it. And in that moment, I decided to take the gloves off. I forwarded the email to Kira's head of legal. And then I made a call. To Devon. "You still have access to the old internal dashboard?" I asked. There was a pause. Then, "I can get in." "Why?" I looked at the blank document open on my screen. Because we're going to draft a report so airtight, it'll make the SEC blink twice. Devin didn't even ask for details. He just said, "Give me 24 hours," and hung up. The man was a ghost in the system. And for once, that was a blessing. While he worked in the shadows, I focused on the public face. Kira had me reviewing every integration milestone BioLife had hit with us and reworking our onboarding timeline from scratch. I was doing in 2 weeks what my old firm hadn't managed in 2 months. Every time I ran into a bug or a missing deliverable, I flagged it and logged it with screenshots. We weren't just correcting bad work. We were documenting negligence, and each log was like another nail in the coffin. Then Devin came through. He dropped a compressed file into a shared drive at 3:17 a.m. File name: forwhentheylie.zip. Inside, internal dashboards showing commissions rerouted to Marcus's fake strategic development team. Slack messages where managers literally typed things like, "Give that one to Kyle, Lucas is already over his quota." Time-stamped logs showing how my BioLife deal had been reassigned internally 2 days before I was fired. They'd planned this. They knew the commission would trigger my bonus clause, and they moved to erase me before it hit payroll. Devin had even dug up an internal memo draft, never sent, proposing policy changes to future commission structures to prevent legal ambiguity. The memo was dated 3 hours after my firing. These clowns were planning to rewrite the rules after pushing me off the board. So I wrote a memo of my own. I titled it Ethical Failure and Contractual Breach, a case study in commission fraud. 10 pages, bulletproof. I cited contract clauses, provided time-stamped proof of manipulation, named names, and, here's the kicker, included a full list of clients whose accounts had likely been affected. Kira read it, looked up at me across her sleek glass desk, and said, "Let's go nuclear." "We didn't go to HR. We went to the board." BioLife's board, that is, including the 2 former DOJ attorneys on it. Kira scheduled a private presentation under the heading Vendor Accountability and Risk Mitigation. Clean. Professional. Devastating. I presented the whole thing myself, in a crisp white shirt and the same blazer I'd worn the day Marcus fired me. I watched them go pale, page by page. One board member interrupted halfway through. "You said these logs are verified?" I nodded. Digitally time-stamped, cross-verified with contract terms, and backed by multiple former employees ready to testify. Silence. Then the woman from DOJ, I'll never forget this, leaned back in her seat and said, "Well, they're done." By the next morning, BioLife's legal team had issued a formal breach of contract notice to my old firm. The deal was suspended pending investigation. Payment was halted. And the client? Gone. A multi-year, $22 million deal, evaporated overnight. Garrett tried to do damage control, but it was too late. I started getting texts from former co-workers. "WTF did you do?" "They're spiraling. Marcus just got escorted out." "But the best one?" From an anonymous number. Just 2 words. "Nice move." I read that text. "Nice move," and set my phone down. It felt like the air had changed, like I was finally breathing oxygen again after months of barely surviving on pride and caffeine. But this wasn't victory. Not yet. Not until everything was done cleanly. BioLife's board moved fast. Within 48 hours of our presentation, they sent formal notices to regulatory bodies and offered to cooperate fully with any investigations into vendor misconduct. Kira looped me in as an external advisor, and I stayed sharp, cautious not to overstep, but ready with every detail they needed. Then came the hammer. An industry journal broke the story. Top biotech firm drops vendor amid fraud allegations. Sources: site commission tampering, mass resignations. No names in the headline, but if you read the fine print, they knew. Everybody knew. Marcus was gone. Garrett stepped down a week later, citing health reasons. Within a month, the company announced an internal audit, then mass restructuring. Legal teams moved in. Several mid-level managers who'd ghosted me at the end started quietly purging their LinkedIn profiles. The same people who once treated me like I was replaceable were now radioactive, unhireable. I never gloated, not once. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't take one long, slow scroll through their profiles just to see the word former in bold next to their titles. Kira and I stayed in touch. The rebuild with BioLife turned into a full-time offer, a senior role heading up their new enterprise growth division. Clean title, clean budget, no Marcus types in sight. At first, I hesitated. After what I'd been through, trust didn't come easy. But one afternoon, Kira called me directly. She said, "Lucas, you're not coming in as an employee. You're coming in as a partner. You proved your loyalty when you had nothing left to gain. That's who I want helping me build this." So I said yes, and it was the best decision I've ever made. A few weeks into the new job, I got an email forwarded to me by BioLife's legal team. It was from someone still at my old company, someone junior. The subject line just read, "We're sorry," in the body. "Lucas, most of us didn't know what they did to you until it was too late. I hope you're doing okay. You deserved better." I stared at it for a while. Then I replied, "Thank you. I am doing better, and I'm building something that no one can take from me again." Some people think revenge is about tearing others down. That's never been my style. Revenge is walking into a place where you were once erased and getting handed the keys to build something untouchable. I got fired for doing my job too well. And turns out that was the best thing that ever happened to me.